All right, guys, welcome back to another free training in Real Estate Skool. And what we are going to focus on today is we are going to learn how to make the perfect offer. Now, when we are making an offer to a seller, we want to keep a couple things in mind. Number one, we want to make them an offer that is going to have a healthy spread baked into the offer. Okay. Number two, we don't want to make them an offer too high that's going to allow us to get stuck and not be able to wholesale that deal or not be able to do that deal, whatever exit strategy we decide to use, without making money, right? We don't want to break even. We definitely don't want to lose money. And we want to build in these spreads. So we're going to keep it simple today. I have a presentation that I want to share, and it's going to probably take me about 20 minutes to get through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide to the right or left here so we can get this all in the screen, and we can rock and roll in. Okay. So again, today it's all about making the perfect offer. And in order to make the perfect offer, we're going to use the MAO formula. And the MAO formula is the formula that's going to help us decide what the perfect offer looks like. Okay. So why does anybody care? I love asking this question. Why does anybody care? Well, number one, we want to work on numbers, not feelings. Anytime that I'm investing and I get emotional and making an offer or trying to determine an ARV or something along those lines, what ends up happening is I end up making some mistakes. So I want to remove the emotions out of my offer making process. I also want to reduce the risk in the deal, right? So if I can make an offer that has a healthy spread, it's going to reduce the risk of me losing money or breaking even on one of my deals. And then last but not least, we want to be able to project our expected profit margins in the deal in advance. We don't want to be going in, guessing, or speculating. So we want to remove the emotions. We want to reduce our risk. And we want to know from the beginning, from the get-go, what kind of profit we can make on the deal. That's why we want to use the MAO formula to determine what a perfect offer might look like. All right, let's jump in. What is the MAO formula? Well, the MAO formula is a very, very basic formula, but essentially it allows us to determine what the most we can pay a seller, ideally a motivated seller, for their property. So we're basically calculating to determine what the most we can pay is, all right? So MAO equals maximum allowable offer. And again, we are going to be solving for this number. So we're going to be using this equation to determine what the most we can pay for the property is. Okay. How do we determine what the MAO formula is, or how do we decipher it or calculate it out? Well, we start with everything on the right side of the equal sign, because again, we're solving for the MAO on the left side of the equal sign. So on the right side of the equal sign, we're going to start with our ARV. And the ARV is the after repair value. And we're going to get the ARV essentially by running comps on the property, finding other properties that have sold recently in the vicinity. Okay. We want to find properties ideally within 6 months, a quarter mile, that are very similar in type. We don't want to be comping 2 stories to ranches without basements, or 1 stories to 3 stories, right? We want to try to keep the type of property as similar as possible to the property that we're comping. So we start, oddly enough, with what the property could be worth in the end. So we're not really even looking at our particular property right away. We're looking at what our property could sell for. And that's where the comps come in. So that's the first step, is we go and we run comps and we see what has sold in the vicinity recently that is similar to ours. And that's going to give us a number. Next, we're going to multiply that number by a discount rate. Now, you're going to probably see a lot of people online, a lot of other investors, coaches, teachers, mentors, And they're just going to say, oh, just use the 70% rule, right? Just multiply everything by 70%. And in my opinion, that is a terrible approach. And in fact, you will never hear me coach people on just using 70%. 70% may be a great place to start if you don't know what to use. But the discount rate is, in fact, called a discount rate because it's a sliding scale. So 70% is typically a great place to start. But again, in my opinion, it is not what I'm going to use every single time. So that's why my equation isn't MAO equals ARV times 70% minus my discount rate. I'm sorry, minus my repairs. It's MAO equals ARV times my discount rate minus my repairs. And we're going to get into that in a minute here in much, much more detail. But for the most part, this is the equation. Last but not least are the repairs. Now, keep in mind that the repairs, the cost to get to the ARV, is going to go hand in hand with the ARV, the after repair value. The ARV is the after repair value. It's not the value today. It's the value after we repair it. So what is it going to take in terms of repairs to get to that ARV? Now, here's where it may get a little tricky, but I'm going to keep it very simple for you. If you send me a deal and I look at it and I say, hey, the ARV on this property is $300,000, but it's going to need $50,000 to get it there. And you send it to another investor and they say the ARV is $275,000, not $300, but $275, but they're only looking at $20,000 in repairs. We're both right. Neither one of us are wrong because I'm putting $50,000 in and I'm going to get a higher ARV while they may only be putting in 20 and they're going to get a lower ARV. So the ARV you decide based on your comps is going to determine the cost of the repairs. So what is it going to cost you to get your subject property to look like the ones you see in the pictures on the comps when you're running comps? Is that 20 grand or is it 50 grand? So ARVs can be high, they can be low. Repairs can be high and be low. But just know that the ARV you decide on is going to determine the level of repairs that you are going to need to spend to get it to that after repair value. All right, just keep that in mind. If you are going with a lower ARV, you're going to have less repairs to get it to that number. If it's a higher ARV, you're going to have higher repairs to get it to that number. It's not hard. Just keep that in mind. Okay. If you are wholesaling, we're going to be subtracting out an additional wholesale fee. Now, I don't typically use this equation with the wholesale fee in it. The reason is I just use healthy discount rates when I'm making my offers, and I don't need to add this additional variable into my equation. I can essentially work off of this formula, but I always use healthy discounts. If you know your investor's buying at a 75% discount, then add in a fee and use the equation they're using. It'll make your life easy. No right or wrong way to do this. Either way, this is the formula. All right. I know there's somebody out there right now that's saying, well, why not use 70%, Dave? Why do we use a discount rate? And we're going to answer that. Why use a discount rate? And here's the deal. We're going to use a discount rate because you have to factor in your holding costs, your utilities, your insurance, your taxes, your cost to borrow, plus your cost to sell. So the agent fees, the closing costs, the seller concessions. And here's the deal. That's typically going to equal about 10%, give or take. All right. 10% is going to typically be your cost to sell. Now, somebody's maybe out there arguing, I can do it for 8, I can do it for 9. Sure. So can I. But round it up to 10%. And that is going to make your math easy. And it's also going to give you a little bit of padding and wiggle room. So if the cost to sell the property, maybe you have to discount the price a couple thousand to get it sold, it's going to be factored in there. So part A, why do we use a discount rate? Because A, it's going to be 10% to sell the property regardless of the price that we choose. And B, finally, we want to add in our expected profits into the discount rate. So we know, remember the very first slide? We want to reduce our risk. We don't want to overpay, but we also want to know what the expected profit is going to be on the deal. So this is one of the main reasons why we use ourselves a discount rate. Okay, what is the discount rate? Well, a lot of people like to just refer to it as the 70% rule or 70%. And if you do it that way, that's not a bad approach if you don't know. But the 70% discount essentially is going to take 30% off the top. Well, where does that 30% go? Well, 10% is going to be your cost to sell. That leaves an additional 20%. 10 plus 20 is 30. And it's going to give you a healthy 20% profit margin. Now, if we slide the discount rate from 0.7, which is 70%, to 0.75, which is 75%, you're going to notice that we're going to be taking less off the top. So now we've taken 25% off the top. Here's the deal, folks. The cost to sell doesn't change. It's fixed. Okay. So if the cost to sell is 10% right there, 15% is going to be our new profit margin. This is why we use a discount rate. Okay. So we can essentially know what we are going to be able to pay. Now, again, the discount rate is a sliding scale. Why is it a sliding scale? Well, if we are going to be using a discount rate of, let's say, 50%, which is low, F-class neighborhoods, D minus F-class neighborhoods, the cost to sell is still 10%. But the profit margins are now 40%. So in high-risk neighborhoods I don't want to go, I use a 50% discount rate. Because basically what it's saying is this is a no-brainer deal. I could get robbed, screw up 3 different times, and still break even and or make a little bit of money on this. And when I'm in high-risk parts of town, I want to reduce my risk as an investor. Now, on the flip side, if I'm in a B plus, A minus neighborhood, I may never win a deal at 70%. I need to be more competitive. I need to be more aggressive with my offers. So I may need to go to 0.8. And there are some class neighborhoods, A especially, where I'm going to be at 75 or 80%, sometimes even higher. But what that does is it keeps my cost to sell fixed, always going to be 10%, give or take. And it's reducing the amount of profit that I am going to now make on this deal down to 10%. Here's the cool part. When you're in A-class neighborhoods, the values are higher. So 10% of 500,000 is still 50 grand. A lot of investors are still going to be happy making $50,000 on that fix and flip deal, even though it's only 10%. But when values are 100 grand, 10% of 100 grand isn't much. It's only 10 grand. So investors are going to typically want a higher profit margin and a higher percentage, 15, 20, maybe even 25 or 30% in the lower class neighborhoods. So again, the discount rate is a sliding scale. Well, how do you know where to slide the scale? Well, folks, this is as simple as A, B, C. Literally. I'm loving Real Estate Skool. This is fun. Why would you use a discount rate? We covered. What is the discount rate? What's the sliding scale? That's what we're going to cover now. Why do you, or what is it, right? Well, A-class neighborhoods are going to be more competitive. So we're going to need to be at 75 or 80%, maybe even higher in terms of the discount rate. So at 75%, that's 10% cost to sell, 15% profit. At 80%, that's 10% cost to sell, 10% profit. Lower profit margins in higher class neighborhoods. But again, the price is going to be much larger. Keep that in mind. In B class neighborhoods, we're going to be 70 to 75%. Now, again, this is national averages. Your neighborhood, your municipality, the city or county you live in, you may have to move these a little bit. But from my experience, 18 years, by the way, this has worked really, really well in most markets. Your normal C class neighborhood, guys and girls, C is average. All right. If you got A's and B's in school, you were above average. C's are average neighborhoods. That's where the 70% rule or the discount rate of 70% can be utilized all day long. 70% is 10% cost to sell, 20% profit margins. 10 plus 20 is 30. That's the opposite of 70, right? That's the offset. In your D class neighborhoods, 60 to 70%. In F class is like war zones. It's places that I don't typically want to be. I don't want to invest there unless I can really, really, really make the spread on that deal big. And then it just makes for an easy wholesale. I'm not typically fixing and flipping or owning rentals in the D minus or F class neighborhoods. But if I can get a good deal on them, then there's money to be made in that deal. So this sliding scale is super, super important to keep in mind. This is how we determine what that discount rate is. So I am on slide 12 of, I believe, 19. I'm going to back this up a second. Keep in mind, let's go to this slide here. MAO equals ARV times your discount rate. That is determined by the neighborhood in which you are investing. Then subtract out the repairs. I want to highlight this one more time. The repairs for you might be different for the repairs for me. And the reason they may be different is because we may have different ARVs after repair values in mind. If my ARV is 300, but it needs 50,000 in repairs, and your ARV is 275, and it only needs 20,000 in repairs, we both could be right, because the after repair value is after the repairs. It's after we've gone in and we've actually repaired the property. So the more money you spend rehabbing, renovating, updating, the higher the ARV should be. It makes sense. Keep that in mind. All right. This is not rocket science, but there are a couple things that you want to be aware of. Again, this is probably the most important slide in this presentation, minus knowing the actual formula itself, the MAO formula. So good neighborhoods, you're going to be above 70%. Bad neighborhoods, war zone neighborhoods, you're going to be below 70%. 70 is a good place to start if you don't know the neighborhood type. 70 is a great place to start. But in better neighborhoods, you're not going to win very many deals, especially in today's market and today's economy, if you're not getting a little bit more aggressive on your offers. And if you go in and you try to offer a really, really, aggressive number in a D or an F class neighborhood, you are essentially going to be overpaying. You're not going to be limiting your risk, and it's going to be a bad deal for you. So just keep those things in mind. All right, moving on. Over here in Real Estate Skool, we like to talk about all things: wholesaling, fix and flip, rentals, creative financing, BRRRR, subject to, you name it, lease options. I love it. I do all these things. Okay. But if we are wholesaling, we have to understand that we have to buy great deals, and then we have to sell them good. So really what that means is that we need to leave meat on the bone for the seller. But also what that means is that the buyers are also wanting to get good deals. It is going to be very difficult to wholesale a deal if it's not good. You need to get a good deal. So as a wholesaler, you need to have a spread that's even better than good. So the easiest way for me to define how a wholesaler makes money is we make the spread between great and good. We use all of our experience to run appointments and build rapport with sellers, and our marketing efforts to get in front of these individuals, and we make friends and we build rapport. And then we go out and we get a great home run deal. And then we sell that to somebody as a triple, and we make the difference between great and good. So again, keep in mind, if you are going to be using this formula, you need to subtract out either a wholesale fee or, my personal favorite, just use a healthy discount rate and build it in. Just factor that percentage in. All right. Now, let's explain the formula with a simple example. We have the MAO formula. All right. Let's assume we have an ARV property, and I'm going to assume that the ARV is 160 due to the fact that it needs 35,000 in repairs. If it needs 50,000 in repairs, the ARV might change. But in this scenario, with a $35,000 in repairs, we can get ours to look like some of these sold comps over here. And this is a hypothetical example that have sold recently for 160K. So in order to solve this equation, we're going to solve with the numbers. So MAO equals, that's what we're solving for, 160. And we're going to just use a C-class neighborhood here. Again, there's a discount rate, and in a good neighborhood, go higher. In a bad neighborhood, go lower. But for simplicity, we're going to just use a C-class neighborhood. And then we're going to take out the 35 in repair. So 160 times 0.7 is 112, minus out the 35K, and that gets us to 77,000. Now that is our max allowable offer. That is not the offer that we're going to make to the seller. This might be another one of the most important things you can learn in this part of the presentation. Okay. The MAO is 77,000. We have solved for it. But again, we want to keep one thing in mind. Don't forget, this is not the offer that we want to make. The MAO is the maximum allowable offer that we are going to allow ourselves or our team or our acquisition managers or our lead manager or whoever it is that's making the offer to the seller. That's the most that we're going to be willing to pay. Now, maybe we negotiate up to that number in 20 or 30 minutes. Maybe it takes 2 years to get to that number, or 3 months or 6 months or whatever. But you never want to start with that number. So again, if our MAO is 77,000, like we just determined in this example, 160K ARV, C-class neighborhood. So 70%, we're going to multiply those together, then subtract the 35 out. We get an MAO of 77,000. But the offer that we're actually going to make is less than that. It's going to be 65 or maybe 70. I personally would probably start at 65. Unless I knew that was going to be too low, then I would start at 70. But regardless of where I start my offer, it is going to be less than my maximum allowable offer. Because if I give them the best offer out the gate, I now lost all my wiggle room. How am I going to negotiate if I have zero negotiating power? I have no way to come up on the offer if I've given them my best offer out the gate. So the MAO is very, very important to understand that this is the max offer, not the offer. Okay. And I was saying earlier, I've even, allowed myself 4, 5, 6, 7 months in some cases to get up to that number. I never want to lead with that number. And the only way I'll get to that number on the appointment is if I think I can get them to agree to it. Otherwise, I'm going to stay low. And I'm going to do so for 2 reasons. And that's our final slide here. All right. 2 reasons. Number 1, we want the wiggle room to be able to negotiate with our sellers. If we don't have wiggle room to negotiate with our sellers, then we're going to find ourselves in a very tough spot. We're going to find ourselves into a place where we've given them our best offer out the gate, and we can't come up anything to work with them. Nobody wants to work with the buyer that says, I've given you my best offer, and my best offer is my first offer. And if you want me to give you another offer, it's going to be lower. Don't be that type of guy or girl. That is a terrible mindset. Everybody wants to negotiate a little bit. So build in your negotiations to the offer that you make. Make it to where you have spread or wiggle room to get up to a number that might be in the middle of where you're offering and where they're wanting. And if you can have the MAO in the middle, then you're golden. And number 2, guys and girls, sometimes they will accept, and I say they as the motivated seller, they will accept an offer lower than what we are actually willing to pay. So let's go back a couple slides and use this as an example here. If we have an MAO of 77,000 in our scenario here, and we offer 77,000, and they say, yep, we'll take it. Well, you just got yourself a good deal because you've used a calculation to determine how to make the perfect offer. However, let's assume that we offered 65 instead of 77. And they're not really in the mood to negotiate, and they only owe 50. And they say, hey, that's a lot less than we wanted, but we're done with this property. We'll take the deal at 65. Well, you had a good deal at 77, but now you got them to agree to an offer even lower. And you've basically built yourself in an additional $12,000 of profits that could be used towards a wholesale, a fix and flip, a rental, refinance, whatever. The lower, the better. We make our money when we buy. We get paid when we sell, but we make our money when we buy. So definitely keep that in mind. Okay, to recap, We want to make offers using the MAO formula, folks. We want to use a discount rate, which is basically built on the neighborhoods, right? Higher discount rates, which is less profit margins in nicer neighborhoods. Lower discount rates, which is higher profit margins in not so great neighborhoods. The cost to sell is fixed at 10% no matter what. The difference in the discount rate is the profit margin. Okay. Once we solve for an MAO using the acceptable discount rate, we're going to then discount that 5, 10, 15, maybe even 30 grand in some cases lower. We're doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want the wiggle room. Number two, they may accept the offer lower. And number three, which I didn't even mention, is we want to anchor low out the gate and let those sellers know that we're not retail buyers. We're investors and we need to be low to make a deal. It's not necessarily hard to get your number down, but it's much, 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 much easier to go up on your number because it's more money in the seller's pocket. So by anchoring low and going below our MAO or max offer, we now have wiggle room. And sometimes, like I mentioned here at this number 2, sometimes they will actually be willing to take an offer less than what we are willing to pay for the property. So definitely keep some of those things in mind. I love it. All right, having fun here. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to also make sure that you all know that this is a live Zoom call that I'm doing these trainings on. I am hosting these inside of reiskool.com. And in fact, whoa, I don't know what I just did there. Let's do this. I need to change this to that. There we go. And Real Estate Skool is what I mean by reiskool.com. You can see here the URL is school.com/real estate. I own REI Skool, SKOOL.com. It just auto forwards, just a quick redirect. But this is where we are hosting, and we just hit 152 members. We're literally a week old. This is a free community right now. At some point, we're going to be charging money to join this community, but for a limited time, it is a free community. And I want to highlight this really quickly as well. This community is amazing. Come join us. You can see there's some new individuals that have just joined that have made some welcome posts. It's a great place to collaborate. So like I could click on a member here and I can actually go chat. I can follow. I can send them DMs. I can do all types of cool stuff. This will help with joint venturing. It'll help with collaborating. It'll help with communicating. I'm going to build one of the biggest real estate investor communities out there, and I am so happy to have launched this. Next, we have a classroom, guys and girls. This call right here will be hosted in our call replays. Several free calls each and every week. We have a free wholesaling course, a free landlording course, a free contract generator, and then you can earn the real estate data in the private money course for free by participating. These are locked until you gain points. And I'm going to skip ahead to the leaderboard. And the leaderboard is great because you can gain points and you can see what you get. And if you stick around and you contribute to the group, you can even get access to coaching calls, as well as a free week or even a free month into my mastermind, which we do more intensive one-on-one and group coaching calls, which is amazing. But one of the great things as well is we have a calendar. And you can see here, this calendar is filling up with events. We host a virtual REIA meeting every Sunday. And the only way to get the link is to go join school. And you can see it's right in here. We do trainings. I have a Simply training. I have a pulling leads training. I have a cold calling training. I have a setting up your business training. And I have a how to close PPC deals training coming up. This one right here is making the perfect offer. You can add these to your calendar directly from school. And then last but not least, you can search members, go ahead and chat, follow up with them, communicate, collaborate, all the things that we would want to do within a community. And this is just such an awesome program. I've been wanting to put together Real Estate Skool. Literally, it's been on my list of to-dos for 5 years, but it hasn't been perfect. I didn't have this really cool microphone and this great camera and this platform here to host the community, the classroom, the calendar, the leaderboard. You know, we even have growth tools and some other really, really awesome things. They're all involved and all included into one place. And it's awesome that I now have the ability to have all of these in one place. So I am super, super excited about Real Estate Skool. Again, REISKOOL.com. Go check it out. It's free to join, and all of the weekly live trainings are going to be hosted there. And in the event that we have individuals on the live trainings, I don't have one on this one because I just announced it really recently, but sometimes we have several people on here and I'm looking to grow these, and I'll stick around and answer questions for you all in the end or after the call as well. Make sure everybody understands the topic and is, comfortable discussing it or using it or whatever it may be. So hopefully you enjoyed this free training, and this is a Real Estate Skool free training. Head on over, join for free. I can't wait to see you on the inside. Whenever you join, send me a welcome message, and I can't wait to work with you. And with that being said,